Mike Tomlin says Mitch Trubisky will be the starter moving forward for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Is that the right call? We'll examine that and do our stars and skulls grades for this week. I'm Chris Carter of the Locked On Steelers podcast here with Alan Saunders from SteelersNow.com. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the app that you got to download right to your phone right now and create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We have more on them later here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We're joined, as I said before, by Alan Saunders, the man from SteelersNow.com. Alan, we got to talk to you because we've talked about Mike Tomlin ad nauseum, and I'm sure he's going to come up again today. But the question I have not approached nearly enough in the past 5 days is who should be the Steelers starting quarterback until Kenny Pickett returns, because there are some people who out there who think Mason Rudolph is a much better answer than Mitch Trubisky. Mitch Trubisky also hasn't played great, but also hasn't, his one start this year, and again, it's only been one start, came on a very short week after a brutal loss with a lot of injury concerns that the team was trying to account for, and not to make excuses for him, wouldn't have gone too positively for most quarterbacks, in my opinion. What is your stance on for those who say Mason Rudolph should take over for Mitch Trubisky right now?
I don't think he can play right now. I think maybe he could replace Mitch Trubisky if he struggles, especially if he turns the ball over. Like, look, the beginning of that New England game could have really gone sideways for the Steelers, right? Like the pick that gets overturned, if that one that could have been a pick six easily. Then he throws another one. Then there's another one right before the half that gets dropped. So I think maybe if that had happened, maybe you would have seen Mason Rudolph in that game. And I think that's a reasonable excuse me. I think it's a reasonable idea for him, in this game. Like, I think he's a fine guy to turn things over to if things aren't going well. But I don't see any reason, as we sit here Monday night, Tuesday morning, to think that Mason Rudolph would be the better option for the Steelers to play at quarterback this week. I mean, let's look at things objectively using 2023 facts. Okay.
Sure.
Mason Rudolph has had, at this point right now, 0 practices in the Steelers offense since August. That's probably not going to go well. We just saw what Mitch Trubisky did after playing with limited practice time beforehand.
Right.
I'm not really eager to sign up to watch that again, regardless of who does it.
Right.
That doesn't sound like a good plan. Okay. So that's one. Thing two is that, Mason Rudolph lost a competition, a 3-way competition at quarterback last year to these two guys. He has been on the team since. He was let to go into free agency this offseason. And it wasn't until the Steelers got Tanner Morgan in for rookie minicamp and they got a good look at him and they thought, okay, maybe this guy isn't really much, that they went and re-signed Rudolph, who has been a free agent the entire time, couldn't get another job in the league. Where are the signs that someone out there that evaluates quarterback play for a living thinks that he's better? I don't see one. Regardless of whether you have faith in the Steelers decision makers in this area or not, the league is telling us what they think about him as well by the fact that he's still here. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so I don't see, and you can't. So here's flawed fan thinking 101. Okay.
Go for it.
I don't like what I'm seeing. What I'm not seeing has to be better. Okay. What's going on is bad. So a change has to be an improvement. And that's just not true. It's just not true. First of all, we have, and Mike Tomlin laid this out in his press conference on Monday, there's good reason to suspect that Mitch Trubisky will be better with a full week of practice, and in fact, an extended week of practice. He was better in the second half against New England than he was in the first half and than he was against Arizona. And he has a long track record of being a better quarterback than that. There's real reason to think that, like, if the Mitch Trubisky who beat Cincinnati last year played on Thursday, the Steelers win by 2 touchdowns. That guy's in there. Like, he exists. Like, what is more likely that this guy with some time in the practice and some exposure to the first team, like, gets back to where he's been? I think that's pretty likely, right? There's no reason to think that Mason Rudolph is right now going to be a better option given his limited exposure to this offense. He's never even regularly thrown the ball to any of these wide receivers except for Deontay Johnson. Okay. Like, he has no feeling of touch or connection with any of these guys. Like, it's not a recipe for success. There's no reason to think that that'll be better. Now, having said all that, like, could it be? Yeah. Could Mitch go out there and play another really bad game compared to his own standards? Yeah, it's possible. He just did it, right? Okay, and if that happens, should the Steelers maybe go to Mason? Yeah, I can see that being reasonable. But I just can't see that being reasonable as we sit here Monday night, Tuesday morning, going into this week, considering the way that Trubisky improved over the course of the Patriots game, that he had one practice before he played in that game. Like, there's got to be a reasonable expectation that he will play and play much closer to the player that he has historically been than he was on Thursday night.
I feel that they need, if they're going to play him, there has to be some reliance on his ability to change the game in their favor. And so far, that hasn't happened. No. I think that's part of the problem right now, is that they need guys who are answers, not guys who provide more questions in their game right now. And I think that's where they're going to be looking at. And I also think it's where they've, been able to continue to build from. So I think the Steelers, if they're an organization right now, if they're building forward, they need the right guys. And who knows, maybe some of these playmakers that aren't being superstars right now can become that. Maybe George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Pat Fryman with Najee. Maybe they emerge as the leaders you need of the future.
Well, the other thing is, like, you're not going to get the buy-in from those guys if you just, we're going to go with Mason this week. Like, right. Have you ever gone to, I mean, you go to practice, you were at training camp. Did you ever go to training camp this year or practice this year and be like, oh man, 2 just blew me away today. Like, I can't believe I'm not getting that guy out there. Like, I don't know. I've never seen that. Like, I've never seen like a guy like, oh man, I really wish we could get Mason out there. Like, if you start playing guys just to try something, well, can't get any worse. The fan thinking, right? You're going to lose buy-in from the players. Like that. That is, and look, the buy-in on offense is minimal right now as it is. Like, it's fragile. Like, I don't know that you can go losing more guys off that train and have any hope of having any success. So and the third part of it is, like, look, they didn't protect Mitch. They didn't protect Kenny Pickett very well, and he got hurt. They didn't protect Mitch Trubisky very well. He was running for his life. Mason doesn't really feel the rush very well and isn't that athletic. Like, doesn't seem like a great recipe to me right now.
No, it doesn't. And part of it might be the Steelers might need to improve their offensive line. I think right now they definitely do for
I think they need to improve their offensive scheme.
That too.
Like, I think it's pretty clear that they're not exactly operating the world's most pass-friendly environment here. Like, I think we can pretty well confirm that at this point, right? Like, and honestly, I feel like it's gotten worse over the last couple of weeks.
Absolutely. We have Stars and Skulls grades coming out in just a minute here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. From that Patriots loss, the Steelers suffered. Chris Carter, Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Stick with us. We still got a lot to discuss. But first, we want to remind you this show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the #1 app you need to download to your phone right now. And if you do, you won't regret it, especially because they have all the different offers you could imagine for events around you. Game Time is an app you can download right to your phone. And when you do, you're getting a chance to download tickets to your phone fast, easy, and secure so that you get all the value that you want. Don't go down to the event, whether it's a concert, whether it's a sporting event, whether it's a comedy event, whatever it is. Don't go down there just trying to get in late and hope to find the right seats with scalpers on the street. Make sure you hit up Game Time, because Game Time will have all those prices in real time. Even if the game has already started, you have up to an hour after the game has started to join an event with Game Time. That is where you can get the best amazing deals. So go to gametime.co right now, get exclusive flash deals, and if you find tickets that are in the same section and row for less somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% of that difference. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app or go to the website gametime.co. Terms and conditions apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. That's download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter, Alan Saunders, breaking things down for you on the Steelers this week as we continue things going on. Let's get into our stars and skulls grades. Remember, our stars and skulls grades are a little bit different. We're not doing A, B's, and C's over here. We do stars, and the amount of stars you get, the more stars you get, the better you are. The more skulls you get, the worse you were. And therefore, there we go. So let's get into this right away. We'll start with the good, because there are actually more good than I originally thought there would be for this game, for how bad of a loss this was. And we'll get into how that impacted things later. But in the 1-star grades here, I have the following players: TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Patrick Peterson, Joey Porter Jr., Minka Fitzpatrick, Deontay Johnson, Keanu Benton, James Daniels, and Isaac Seumalo. Now, none of these players were unstoppable this in this game, Alan. But in my opinion, they all presented a collective problem that the Steelers had to be able to counter against in the coming years.
Yeah, I thought they were good. I thought they were solid, and I thought they, the Steelers defense gave up some big plays, and they gave up a short field touchdown. But really, like, the two big their problems on defense were confined to relatively few guys. I think that's the way I would say it. It's like the defense as a unit should not be giving up 21 points in the first half to New England Patriots, period. Okay. But if you go and look at like how each individual guy on that defense played, there's actually some pretty good performances. Like it was very much just a few spots that the Patriots were able to pick apart, which is what made that really frustrating. Was it was the same spots that the Cardinals were picking apart the week before.
Yep.
That's the problem, and it's a bad problem. But if you're doing grades the way we're doing grades, it means there's going to be a lot more good performances than you would think.
I'm right with you, man. I feel like there's a lot more to be had there, and there were a lot of missed opportunities there. Talk about these 1-star grades again. I'll also go over my 2-star grades. I only had 2, Cam Hayward and Landon Roberts. I don't know about you, man. You tweeted during the game, Landon Roberts for mayor. I petition you, sir. I think Landon Roberts needs to run for president. I don't think he solves all the problems for the Steelers defense, but man, that guy solves so many problems on the defensive side of the ball just by existing on game day.
He is very crucial right now. Let me just say that. He is holding things together. It is a little bit of chicken wire and duct tape in the middle of the defense right now. And Landon Roberts is the neighborhood handyman. They'll just be like, "I'll get it, Mrs. Johnson. I'll fix it up." Like I guess that's where he's at right now. Like he's just holding stuff together. It's not always necessarily like beautiful, but it is getting done. And it is not. And the difference when he is on the field and off the field is as dramatic as TJ Watt, maybe more, because I think Nick Herbig's playing really well. Like when he comes off the field, you're like, he's playing really, really well right now.
Yeah, I feel you on that, man. it makes making moves so much harder because we also know how things are going to play out in the next 5 weeks. There could be a lot of things that get in the way of things here, as far as what our reality is and what we do moving forward, and specifically with the Steelers, what do they do moving forward? You talked about Mitch Trubisky being the answer. We're going to go over our stars and skulls in a minute here, but to me, I feel like there is there's part of this that I look back at with the way that this season has gone, how weird it's been, and how certain teams have not been as completely unstoppable as other years. I see this year as a unique opportunity for the Steelers to take advantage of other teams that are struggling right now. I look at even just like this past Monday Night Football, you had the Dolphins lose to the Titans in crazy fashion. And if someone had told you that was the case and that's what happened, you wouldn't believe it. Now, the Packers losing doesn't really help the Steelers, but I honestly think there's a lot of these teams that are going to be dealing with crazy stuff in the coming weeks. And I'm not sure if they're going to be able to handle all of it. You know what I'm saying?
So what you're saying is if the Steelers can get into the playoffs, you don't think it's just like a write-off? You think that like some of these upper level teams are potentially vulnerable, and that these last 4 weeks do really mean something, even though they're 0-2 coming off 2 losses to 2-win teams.
Exactly, because when I look at the standings right now, like if the standings were to happen right now, the Steelers would play the Dolphins, and the Dolphins just lost to the Titans, who the Steelers have beaten. Let's say the Chiefs take the number 2 spot and play the Steelers right now. Oh, no, excuse me. Actually, I got that all wrong. The Chiefs would play the Steelers right now, as the Chiefs are the 3 seed, the Steelers are the 6 seed, and I think right now the Steelers would have a shot to. If they play like they did against the Cardinals and Patriots, it doesn't matter. They would lose to anybody, as we've seen. But if they played their game against the Cleveland Browns or the Kansas City Chiefs or the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think the Dolphins could be tough with the way that they play offense. But a lot of those teams, the way that they play, I think the Steelers could hang with those teams and win going out late, and that would change the tune of things.
Well, going back to our previous discussion, I'm not sure that I feel good enough about Mitch Trubisky to do that. I think they got to get
Kenny I hear that.
To do that.
I hear that.
Healthy to do that. All right, what do we got next? We got were there any more 2-star grades? We had E-Rob. Was he the
Cam Hayward? Just Cam Hayward was my other 2-star. When I went back and looked at his tape, I thought he was being a real game wrecker. I think Cam Hayward's still the man. I think that I think that they have another year of him being a significant part of the defense. But I also think that they're running out of time to find the person who can aid him as being the other guy who is the significant part of the defense. Maybe that's Keanu Benton, because Keanu Benton was one of my 1-star grades here. Again, my 1-star grades were also TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Patrick Peterson, Joey Porter, Minka Fitzpatrick, Deontay Johnson, Keanu Benton, James Daniels, and Isaac Seumalo. Real quick here, Alan. Patrick Peterson. There are some people that are still giving that man flack, but I think he's playing pretty well right now. Would you say the same?
I'd say like Cam Hayward, like the last 2-star, that was the first game where I felt like he was back. Like he was himself again. And then Patrick Peterson, man, I think he's really turned it on. I think he's really become the player that the Steelers thought they were getting. Moving him around seemed to really have suited him. Like the way they're moving him around the formation has helped his game. It seems like it's kind of minimalized some of the tackling issues that we saw earlier. I think the coverage has been great. Now, look, I mean, that's a bad passing offense. Like we know that. And they probably, but it wasn't Patrick Peterson that was giving up the yards. I thought he had a great game. So yeah, I think he's been coming on strong as well. It really is a lot of individual positive performances, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Skulls next. Do we have a bus ticket? We have 2 weeks in a row with a bus ticket?
We don't have bus tickets this week. And in fact, I have to admit, I messed up. There is a person who I left off my 1-star rating list here who deserves to be on it and will be on it in retrospect, and that's Miles Killebrew, because we gave him a bus ticket grade last week for being a special teamer who continuously messed up, and then he went and blocked a punt that gave the Steelers a chance to be in the game. Credit to Miles Killebrew. Also, apparently, some of y'all out there, not people who listen to this podcast, hopefully, But some Steelers fans out there thought it was funny to issue death threats to Miles Killebrew. Those people who did that, I tell y'all are sick. You need help. I hope that none of you out there who are actually listening to the show or watching the show actually took part in stuff like that. That stuff is disgusting. Don't do those things. But as Alan said, we have to get to our skull segments here on who are the worst grades from the Steelers' loss this past weekend. We'll do that in a minute here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. He's Alan Saunders. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, we want to remind you this show is also brought to you by DoorDash. DoorDash is the app where you can get your food favorites brought right to your home, whether it's from your favorite restaurant or your favorite grocery store. Instead of trying to order pizza and wings and pop and burgers, all this stuff from all these different places, just get it all from one place, because DoorDash will get them delivered right to your house and in quick order. That's where DoorDash really comes in. And you can take full advantage of DoorDash right now by getting 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and use code LOCKED23. Subject to change, terms and conditions apply. Get prepared as you're looking at your stuff for the week. Make sure your fridge is full. Go to DoorDash, whether you're looking on game day for the perfect food to watch while you're watching an away game, or you're sitting there and saying, I just need a good dinner tonight. DoorDash is perfect for both of those. Not only will they bring your restaurant favorites, but if you got stuff that you got queued up from your favorite grocery store, that's where DoorDash can really kick in. So get DoorDash right now, download it to your phone, and when you do, get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCK23. That's LOCKED23, subject to change, terms and conditions apply. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter, Alan Saunders. We're getting into the skulls grades now. We did the stars. I wanted to give Alan some space to breathe. Let's get into the skulls right away. I have right now as a 1 skull grade, George Pickens, Larry Ogunjobi, Presley Harvin, Michael Walker, Trenton Thompson. We have 2 and 3 skull grades. So do not be worried if you see a team up there that you think should be worse graded. They're coming at this time. But Alan, your response to people I have given 1 skull grade so far in this week.
George is interesting, right? Because I think he played fine given what he was asked to do. Mm-hmm. I don't remember George making like an obvious error on the field, but he was such a pain in the butt on the sideline.
Yeah.
That like Mike Tomlin actually addressed it and actually criticized George in his press conference on Monday, which is a very rare step.
Very rare
for Tomlin. And man, like Antonio Brown made sense on Twitter.
Crazy.
Saying that George needs to be better. Like, that's how you know you've done wrong right there. That is a red sign, like a flashing sign that's like you're screwing up here. Things are going badly. Yeah. So I think just for that, I'd be fine with the skull for George. I didn't think that they used him very well. You look at the next gen stat target tree, and he's hanging out like he's a guard within 1 yard of the line of scrimmage, making sure that he doesn't get that illegal man downfield penalty, because he never was targeted on anything that actually went down the field. But I'm okay with that. Who else do we have up there? We had Michael Walker. Man, I could have given him 2. Honestly, it was a pretty rough day, but he did get the big interception, which
that's why I gave him a break.
A huge game changer in that one. Trent Thompson, man, they're trying different things to try to take away the tight ends that have been the problem, and Trent has not been able to be the answer there like I think that they hoped that he might be. I'm okay with the skull there. Presley Harvin just continues to be inconsistent, man. It's not like all the punts are bad, and the average is actually kind of okay, but just like when they need a really good one, they're not getting it from them. And I think this special teams unit, even though they had the partial block, it feels like it can be better still to me. Larry Ogunjobi, pretty pedestrian game from him against a pretty pedestrian offensive line. And I agree with what you said. I think the Steelers, even though they gave him a pretty big contract last year, like they've got to kind of be feeling right now like he's probably not the long-term answer there at that one interior tackle spot. They've got to make some moves or some effort or hope that it's Keanu Benton, who has been playing very well in that slot going forward.
I think there's a lot of questions to be had there moving forward. I think it's going to be certainly something that we all keep an eye on moving forward. But also we still have to examine the rest of the defense because there are 2 and 3 skull grades to get to. 2 skull grades. I gave 2 out, and it's to Trubisky and to Pickens. I hear you out on Pickens, but there were just so many plays that I just thought he could have done a lot more on, even though they might not have gone his way, and that weighs into it. It doesn't doom Pickens to be something that he's not. It doesn't mean that it doesn't take away things like that, but things might lessen in the future. And I think
Mitch is an interesting grade here too, man, because like the first half was about as bad as it can be, and then I don't want to say it was good in the second half, but he leads the drive down for a touchdown, and then like it just was okay after that. I think he played well enough to get another start. I don't think he was good. I think like there were some people that were saying that Mitch Trubisky should have played over Kenny Pickett. Like I think we can pretty well say that's not the case, right? Like this team needs Kenny Pickett back. And I think the thing that really disappoints me about Trubisky is I think he can be so much better, and he's shown that he can be so much better. And I think that's where he was very frank when he spoke after the game and said, I can be better. I stunk, I believe is what he said. So played like crap.
A lot of that going around.
It was just like literally like you ask a question and Mitch just gives a more self-deprecating answer about how bad his play was. We had to keep it to like 3 minutes, otherwise things were going to get real bad. He was pretty negative there.
Man, talk about negative there. Let's keep the negative rolling though. Unfortunately, we talked about the level the 2 skull guys. I got a couple 3 skull guys here as well. Trubisky and Pickens got 2 skulls. 3 skull guys. I got Mason Cole and Damontae Kazee. And Alan, I think Kazee is becoming a problem for the Steelers because now he's being part of giving up big plays regularly, and I don't know if he has an answer to stop that from happening.
What's weird is that he was pretty good when Minkah Fitzpatrick wasn't in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And not like and he had not played that well earlier in the season before Fitzpatrick was hurt, and now he's not playing that well right now. I don't really understand if it's the difference between the 2 safety positions. They're not really used all that differently in the Steelers defense right now. So I don't really know if that's what's going on or what, but like the long pass to Juju Smith-Schuster on the opening drive goes right over KZ. Probably an interception if he turns around and finds the ball. The long touchdown to Hunter Henry. Easily probably should have been an interception, and Kazee wasn't able to come down with it. You can actually see, I think it was Patrick Peterson was in trail coverage on that play, and he kind of puts his hands up like, oh, we got it. Oh, they got it. Like that's you can't have those kind of plays when you're playing safety. It's a tough job. I'm not saying like it is a tough job because you are the last line of defense. Like if you screw up, it's probably a big play. And there's just a little bit too much of that in Damontae Kazee's game right now. And I think there's got to be a way they can move him around, maybe use him more in some of the ways they were using him when Minkah was out. I don't know. He was a good player last year. He was good when Minkah was out. They have not found a way for him to be good alongside Minkah Fitzpatrick this year. And I think it's been kind of an untalked about problem on this defense that's been what did Mike say? Things that have been continually cropping up or something like that. I can't remember the exact wording he used.
I know exactly.
That has been one of those things that has continually been cropping up.
Yeah, absolutely. They need dominance. They don't need just they have the resources. That's where things need to be. And hey, Kansas City's the place for that. We'll see how that affects things moving forward for that team. But I think that the Steelers right now, as they're constituted, they play. I thought it was funny that Mike Tomlin brushed off the first 30 minutes when asked about how the Steelers start a game because the first 30 minutes are part of the overall 60 minutes. But there's still potential for this defense to rise up and beat the teams that are in front of them. But at the same time, that defense is going to have to do it because to me, if the Steelers are going to be a real playoff team, the Steelers defense is going to have to put in some serious work and win some crazy games down the stretch here, at least going 2-2.
Well, I think that's kind of like Mike Tomlin almost set that expectation. Like he started the press conference after a disastrous game on offense and said, well, we got to stop them. We got to not give up 7 points after the turnover. Not like we can't throw the ball into triple coverage to Jabril Peppers. Like that wasn't where he started. It was our defense needs to hold him to a field goal there. Like he's very clearly putting the expectation that if this team is going anywhere, it is going on the backs of its defense. And we'll see how that goes. TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, the concussion protocol. Cross your fingers on that one because that could be very interesting if that plays out this week and those guys don't suit up. If you're putting things on the back of the defense, I want those guys involved.
Absolutely. We'll keep you updated with what all things happen here on the Locked On Steelers podcast throughout the week. He's Alan Saunders. Alan, let people know they can find you, follow you, get more of your work.
At @Saunders_PGH on X, PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. And you can check out the Steelers Afternoon Drive podcast with me, Zachary Smith. And I think maybe we'll get Chris Carter in on this week, too, if we can line him up with the basketball schedule.
Let's do it.
And we'll do it again.
I'm excited for it. Thank you, Alan, so much for coming on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Thank you all for tuning into the Locked On Steelers podcast. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. Get here. It's a big help. Thanks again for Alan for coming on. We'll see you tomorrow with more on your Pittsburgh Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.